So, um, I want you to imagine for a second that you were just suspended in this infinite pitch black ocean.
Right. Just completely vast.
Exactly. Like there's no top, there's no bottom, no time, no matter, just this endless intelligent potential. And then imagine you have a wand and you blow a single incredibly intricate glowing bubble right into that dark expanse.
Which is such a crazy visual.
It really is. But inside that bubble, you have a closed system. It's this safe, structured little pocket to play the ultimate game of life, completely shielded from the terrifying infinity outside of it. And that bubble, according to a massive synthesis of ancient myth and alternative science, is the universe you are living in right now.
Yeah, it's a really powerful image to start with, I think, because it immediately frames the core tension of the material we are diving into today.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, by the way. I'm your host, and I've got our resident expert here with me to help unpack all of this.
Glad to be here. And yeah, we are exploring a really fascinating geocentric model of the universe known as the cosmic egg, and the mechanism driving literally everything in this model, that glowing boundary of the bubble you mentioned, is a massive, self-contained electromagnetic torus field.
Right. And before we get, completely lost in this alternate reality, let's just lay down the ground rules for you listening. This deep dive is an objective exploration of a highly specific, very esoteric cosmology.
Extremely esoteric.
Yeah. The sources we're pulling from today, they weave together Vedic scriptures, Kemet Egyptian mythology, Norse legends, Greek myths, and some highly unconventional interpretations of modern science.
To say the least.
Right. So our goal here is really just to map the architecture of this idea. We're looking at the mechanics of this theoretical universe, unpacking how and why it supposedly works. But we are not endorsing this as literal scientific fact. We're just exploring the ideas.
Exactly. And, to understand the architecture of the cosmic egg, we actually have to start outside of it.
Okay, out in the dark ocean.
Right. If we look through the lens of this specific universe model, the original state of existence is that dark, infinite ocean. It's described as a conscious, divine multiverse of pure potential.
It's waiting to happen.
Yeah. And ancient cultures universally gave this void a name. The Greeks called it chaos. The Norse called it Ginnungagap.
Ginnungagap. I always stumble on that one.
It's a tough one. And the Kemet Egyptians called it none.
But, pure potential doesn't actually do anything until it's activated, right?
Yeah.
So how does this model explain the jump from an infinite silent void to, a physical universe?
So the text described the void essentially deciding to separate a part of itself to experience life. And this act of separation creates the very first spark of creation. In the synthesis, it's referred to as the Holy Trinity.
But we aren't talking about a religious trinity in the traditional sense here, are we?
No, we are talking about literal physics. The sources define this trinity as the very first electromagnetic pulse, a sine wave.
Okay, let me make sure I'm visualizing this correctly. A basic sine wave has three parts, right? You've got the upward curve, the baseline that it crosses, and then the downward curve.
You got it. And that is the mechanical blueprint of existence in this model: birth, experience, and death.
Wow.
And what's really fascinating is how the source material maps ancient deities directly onto atomic and cosmic physics.
Oh, right, like the Vedic stuff.
Exactly.
Ah.
In Vedic cosmology, you have Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the sustainer, and Shiva, the destroyer. The model links this trinity directly to protons, neutrons, and electrons.
Wait, really? So the claim here is that ancient cultures weren't just worshiping abstract gods in the sky. They were basically personifying subatomic particles and electromagnetic frequencies.
That is the central thesis, yeah. The model even applies this to the cosmological concepts of blue shift and red shift.
Oh, I read about this part because mainstream science views redshift as the observation of galaxies moving away from us, right?
Right, the expanding universe. But in this geocentric model, blue shift is the intake. It's the compression of energy, the creator force.
And so redshift would be?
Redshift is the exhale, the expansion. Basically, the destroyer force dissolving that energy back out into the void.
Okay, but you can't just, drop a delicate, pulsing electromagnetic wave out into an infinite void. It would just dissipate back into the ocean. You need some sort of container.
Which brings us to the construction of the cosmic egg itself. To shield this newly created trinity, an ultimate electromagnetic torus field was generated.
The bubble.
The bubble. The Vedic texts call this field the Brahmanda. The Norse called it the giant Ymir, and the Egyptians symbolized it as the great serpent Apep.
The one eating its own tail.
Exactly, Ouroboros.
So Apep the serpent isn't a literal monster in this context. It's the shape of a torus field. It's a continuous looping energy field that forms the boundary line between our structured universe and that chaotic multiverse outside.
Right, it's the ultimate cosmic fence.
But if we are inside a giant swirling energy field, how does that energy not just, crush everything inside? There has to be some sort of mechanism managing that flow, right?
There is. So, for a torus field to function mechanically, it requires a central axis, a cosmic highway.
Right.
Picture a massive vortex running straight down the dead center of the egg, the axis mundi. This acts as the engine room. It's like a central black hole powering all the inner fields.
And the myths have a name for this too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The Norse called this central spine the Bifrost Bridge. The Greeks personified it as Aeolus, the keeper of the winds.
So we have the protective shell, the torus field, and we have the central power column running down the middle. Now, what does the actual physical terrain look like inside this enclosure?
Well,
Because, if the universe is an egg powered by a central vortex, the Earth can't just be a rocky ball floating around a sun.
no. And this is where the model presents its most radical departure from conventional understanding. Within this framework, the Earth is not a spinning globe at all.
Okay, brace yourselves for this one.
Yeah, it is a massive stationary pyramid sitting dead center in the egg, anchored right around that central axis. The Kemet Egyptians referred to this structure as the Ben, or the primordial mound.
Mother Gib,
That's
or Gaia, right?
Exactly.
Hold on, though. A stationary pyramid. How does this model account for basic geology? Like, we know the Earth has a crust, a mantle, and a core. We can literally measure seismic waves passing through them.
Well, the synthesis doesn't deny the existence of those geological layers. It just recontextualizes their location.
How so?
Mainstream science describes the crust, the mantle, the outer core, and the inner core as concentric layers beneath the surface of a sphere, right? Like an onion.
Right.
In the cosmic egg model, those are literal flat physical layers stacked horizontally inside this great enclosed pyramid.
Oh, wow. So it's more like floors in a skyscraper rather than layers of an onion.
Precisely. And that structure is actually mirrored. The sources describe an upright pyramid on top and an inverted pyramid below sitting on the cosmic waters of the deep.
Okay, but where are we in all of this?
The theater of life where humans actually exist is on the top surface of this pyramid. It's known as the Bhumandala.
The Bhumandala. And from what I read in the sources, the Bhumandala is not just one big map. It consists of 4 distinct concentric rings of land.
Right. Think of a giant bullseye target.
Okay, so at the very center of the bullseye is a continent the texts call Eden or Shambhala.
Sitting right around that central axis.
Yeah, and surrounding Eden is this massive mountain range. Beyond that mountain range is the second ring. And that second ring is supposedly our known world, the Earth we experience day to day.
Right, and enclosing our world is another massive ice wall. Now, in mainstream geography, this is Antarctica.
But in this model,
In this model, Antarctica isn't a continent at the bottom of a globe. It is the boundary wall separating our ring from the third ring of land.
which is just wild to think about.
It is, and beyond that third ring is another wall leading to a fourth outermost ring.
Which completely breaks the concept of space travel. If I'm understanding the physics of this model correctly, when modern space agencies talk about traveling to outer space, they aren't talking about launching a rocket straight up into a vacuum.
No, outer space in this paradigm is a literal misnomer. The trajectory wouldn't be upward, it would be outward. Horizontal movement across these vast outer rings of the pyramid.
But wait, if these rings are just vast expanses of land separated by ice walls, what stops someone from just flying a plane straight over Antarctica and discovering the third ring?
Electromagnetism. The physical terrain is only the foundation. The invisible architecture above it is much more complex.
Oh, you mean the nested fields?
Exactly. The sources describe 5 distinct, nested torus fields operating inside this universe. One encloses the absolute center, Eden. One encloses our realm. 2 enclose the outer lands. And the 5th is the ultimate cosmic egg field containing the entire system.
So it's the Russian nesting dolls concept. But they aren't just invisible lines on a map. These nested torus fields are literal physical barriers.
Yes. The source material equates these fields to what modern science calls the Van Allen radiation belts.
Okay.
Instead of being invisible bands of radiation high up in space, they are intense electromagnetic fences that cocoon each specific ring of land.
I like the analogy of electromagnetic acoustic levitation for this. You know how sound waves can be manipulated to, like, hold a drop of water suspended in midair?
Right, yeah.
These Van Allen belts are essentially acoustic fences. And they don't just keep us in. They are the actual tracks that hold the luminaries, the suns, and the moons in place.
Because in this closed system, each of these isolated realms has its own local sun and local moon, trapped within its specific torus field, circling horizontally right above its specific ring of land.
So it's entirely localized.
Exactly. For our realm, the second ring, we have our sun and our moon, which the texts associate with Apollo and Artemis.
Okay, let me stop you right there because the implications of this are just wild. If you manage to traverse horizontally past our Van Allen belts, over the Antarctica ice wall, and into the third ring, what is lighting that realm?
Well, you enter a new torus field, and the luminaries circling that specific realm are Mars and Venus.
Wow.
Yeah. And if you go to the fourth outermost ring, their local sun and moon are Saturn and Jupiter.
So when Elon Musk or NASA talk about sending rovers to Mars, this model interprets that as them sending technology horizontally outward to a completely different ring of land where a plasma luminary called Mars acts as the local sun.
That is the exact mechanical claim of this synthesis. Mars is not a spherical rock in a vacuum. It is a light source for a terrestrial realm located horizontally outward from ours.
That is a massive paradigm shift.
It really is. But the absolute center of the bullseye, the innermost wing, Eden operates differently. It doesn't have a separate sun and moon. It has Mercury.
Mercury, the androgynous luminary.
Right.
Because the texts describe it as acting as both the sun and the moon. The messenger, the source of Buddha or Christ consciousness. And it sits right at the top of that central cosmic axis we talked about earlier, emitting the purest frequency.
And the frequency emitted by Mercury is vital because these nested torus fields are not rigid, static cages. They are breathing engines.
Breathing engines.
Yeah. They expand and contract over immense periods of time, dictating the rise and fall of civilization.
Ah, the breath of Brahma.
Exactly.
The sources outline this 26,000-year cycle of consciousness. When the creator force breathes in, the torus fields contract. They close tightly around their specific rings of land.
And when the fields contract, the boundaries become incredibly dense. The texts refer to this as the Dark Age, the Kali Yuga. Humanity becomes heavily materialistic, disconnected, and fearful because the lower, denser frequencies are basically locked in.
We lose access to the higher frequencies of the center.
Exactly. But as the creator breathes out, the torus fields begin to expand and open up. We transition out of the Dark Age and move toward the Golden Age, the Satya Yuga.
And the model suggests that at the absolute peak of the Golden Age, all of these separating Van Allen belts dissipate entirely.
Right, the boundaries just vanish.
And the four rings become one connected, high-frequency realm.
The physical manifestations of this cycle are fascinating, too. Consider how this model interprets ecological phenomena that we observe today. Mainstream science views things like the shifting of the Earth's magnetic poles or the thinning of the ozone layer as massive ecological crises. But in this geocentric model, what does a hole in the ozone represent?
Right. It represents the cage opening.
Yes.
It's the literal physical manifestation of our confining torus field expanding. The boundaries of the old paradigm are breaking down to allow higher natural frequencies from Eden to enter our stage.
And the sources use this physics to explain sociology, too.
Wait, really? Sociology?
Yeah. Think about it. Why are people suddenly questioning authority? Why is there a massive cultural shift toward seeking nature, exploring veganism, or just rejecting traditional corporate structures?
Oh, I see.
The model attributes this not just to human sociology, but to the literal physics of the expanding torus field hitting our consciousness. You're physically picking up the frequency of the center.
Which brings us to arguably the most intimate part of this entire cosmology. Because if the Earth is this incredibly complex stage, and the torus fields are the mechanical directors shifting the scenes, who are the actors?
That is the big question.
How do you, the listener, actually fit into this massive breathing machine?
Well, the texts describe Earth using very specific terminology. It is the theater of life, the plane of inertia, and the matrix of the mother. It is literally a realm where eternal souls log in to play a temporary role.
It's the ultimate Ready Player One scenario.
Very much so.
But the mechanics of how a soul actually enters this matrix are mapped out with incredible precision. Souls originate from the source, that infinite potential outside the bubble. When they decide to experience individual life, they fall. They become fallen angels.
Right, they incarnate downward through the planetary spheres, gathering density as they go. The text suggests they pass through Saturn, absorbing the concept of time, then down to Mars, absorbing action and conflict, down into our sun, taking on ego, and then Mercury, taking on the analytical mind, before finally entering the physical stage of the Earth pyramid.
And spiritual movement inside this system is governed by those luminaries we mentioned earlier. Moons are described as portals out.
Right.
They are the mechanisms for upward ascension, places where souls shed density and review their karma. Suns, on the other hand, are gateways in. They are the funnels for downward incarnation into heavier matter.
And this creates two distinct trajectories for souls currently on Earth. During this specific phase of the shifting yugas, the sources claim humanity is splitting into two currents. You have descending souls gravitating outward toward the outer rings.
Toward the realm of Mars.
Yes.
These are the souls obsessed with artificial intelligence, transhumanism, and dense materialism. They are the ones trying to build rockets to physically break into the outer rings.
Exactly. And conversely, you have ascending souls. These individuals have learned the lessons of the dense material realm and are now being drawn inward, tuning their frequency toward the center, toward the Garden of Eden. They are seeking harmony, nature, and a return to the source.
I have to challenge the implicit bias here, though.
Yeah.
Because when we hear about a group of elites obsessed with technology and Mars versus a group of enlightened souls returning to nature, our cultural instinct is to frame that as a binary good versus evil narrative, right?
Oh, completely.
The evil tech overlords versus the pure children of the earth. But reading the source material, it doesn't actually frame it that way, does it?
It does not. The model frames it entirely as a mechanical ecosystem.
Yeah.
Duality is a literal requirement for the torus field to function.
Right. Think of the universe as a battery. You need a negative terminal just as much as you need a positive terminal to make the energy flow.
Mm-hmm.
The technology, the materialism, the drive outward, it's not inherently evil in this context. Those descending souls are just on a downward trajectory of their own cycle. They are playing a necessary role in the universal play to maintain the tension of the torus field.
And understanding that removes fear from the equation entirely. In this model, you are eternal energy. You are a star wrapped in skin and bone. Death is not permanent. It is merely the end of a specific role you played on the mother's stage so that you could gather data, experience density, and eventually cycle through the moons to a completely different torus field.
It just reframes everything.
Yeah.
The anxieties of modern life, the feeling of being trapped in a system in this model, those aren't bugs in the code. They are the literal physics of a contracting torus field. And the desire to break free isn't just a psychological urge. It's the magnetic pull of the central axis calling you inward.
We have covered an immense amount of architectural ground today, from the dark, infinite void of the multiverse to the first electromagnetic pulse of the Holy Trinity.
We watched that frequency blow a protective bubble, the ultimate cosmic egg. We traveled down the central Bifrost Highway to a stationary four-ringed pyramid Earth.
We mapped how distinct terrestrial realms exist horizontally across vast plains, separated by the acoustic electromagnetic fences of nested torus fields.
We explored how those fields breathe over a 26,000-year cycle, pulling us from the dense technological Kali Yuga into an expanding high-frequency golden age. And finally, we unpacked the spiritual mechanics of the Matrix, how souls log in through the suns, play out their assigned roles on the plane of inertia, and ascend through the moons.
It is an incredibly dense, cohesive synthesis of ancient mythology and alternative science. The structural overlap between completely disconnected ancient cultures, all describing the exact same electromagnetic engine, is, frankly, astonishing. And we've barely scratched the surface of the specific inhabitants of this model.
Oh, not even close. We didn't even touch on the entities the sources claim actually live out in those outer rings.
Oh man, yeah.
We still need to explore the frost giants of the Nephilim ice walls and the dark spirits dwelling within the subterranean inverted pyramid levels of inner Earth. That is going to require a completely separate deep dive.
The architecture demands it. But if we pull back to the core message of the cosmology we explored today, it requires a deeply personal reflection on your own trajectory within this mechanical system.
Which leaves us with a final, lingering thought for you to carry into your day. If this intricate model holds even a metaphoric truth, if you are quite literally an eternal star wrapped in skin and bone, temporarily logging into the matrix of the mother to learn a lesson.
What role did you log in to play today?
Are you spiraling outward toward the dense, the artificial, the material? Or are you racing back inward, tuning your frequency to the center? When you look out into the chaotic ocean of your daily life, are you aware of the bubble you're standing in? Are you ready, player one?